What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm bringing you my UFC 319 full card review, recap, and results video. So first up, we got our full card results. We're going to go over the bets, let you guys know how we did. Now, this was when the first video breakdown we did in the best bets video, the last video, I mean. This is all the bets that we talked about in that video, so it was a great night, you know. In terms of, I just had the sheet up. If you placed one unit on every single bet that we had, or we talked about in that last video, 14 out of 17 hit. Super happy with it. Now, did I place these all with this exact amount? Obviously not, so we're going to talk about it, but I just wanted to brag a little bit. You know, we had talked about 17 different bets, 14 of them hit. Super happy about this. Awesome night, just from everything we talked about in that last best bets video. So in terms of in the content, if you guys really like what you're seeing, if you got some value from the last couple of videos, please consider subscribing, and I appreciate it a lot. So thank you so much. Now, this is in terms of what I actually placed for this card. You know, I didn't have a unit on every single thing like we talked about, so I'm just going to go through all these really quick. Deone Barbosa, we had the plus 7.5 alternate spread on her. That cashed. That was an awesome bet. We're going to talk about the fights in a little bit, but yeah, she got robbed on that one. But at least the 7.5 alternate spread hit on that. Edson Barboza ended up not cashing. I was disappointed, but it was a fair decision. You know, he lost the fight fair and square. Not mad about that one. Just upset he lost, but fair call. Basinger Sursa Chimaev live money line. I did place this. We didn't talk about it in the video before, so I'm not going to include it in my full count. As you can see, this is without it. 0.7372 units, but just because we didn't talk about that before the video was placed, you know, I didn't talk about that in that video, so I put it in blue here to exclude it from the total. But I did place this, you know, when that line, he was a minus 1200 favorite when the fights were about to start, so to get him all the way down to minus 140 at the end of that first round, I went right on that. I'm like, all right, this dude, yeah, he had a little showboating, and yeah, he lost the first round. I think hands down he lost the first round. It's just, I knew Eric Nolan was stepping up short notice, up a weight class. It was going to be a matter of time before the power, strength, and size was going to be too much, which we saw. And, you know, for a minus 1200 favorite to get it at minus 140, that's a no-brainer for me. Threw a half unit on that. That hit, which is awesome. The GM3, next up, we got GM3 versus Mikhail Ozechuk. Both of those props ended up being a refund in terms of the sub only or decision only, which was totally fine. I kind of expected that. I ended up placing a little bit on the Mikhail Ozechuk money line straight up, which we talked about in the last video. I had half a unit on that, minus 210. For the Kai Asakura Tim Elliott fight, didn't have anything on there. There was really no live betting spot that made sense. By the time he got to Kai Asakura's back, it was already over. For the next fight, Michael Page versus Jared Cannonier, I ended up going with the Michael Page money line straight up at minus 200 for half a unit. Now, I didn't end up placing the Jared Cannonier plus 7.5 alternate spread. I was upset about that because that line cashed clear as day. It was a 29-28, so that line hit. That bet hit. Next up, we got Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. We had Carlos Prates. I had the live money line. I got it for minus 250. He was piecing up Jeff Neal throughout that first round and a half. It was very close, but Carlos Prates had the edge. Nothing crazy was going on, so I figured, all right, this is probably the course of how this fight is going to look. Carlos Prates was just a step ahead. He looked a bit sharper in all the exchanges, so I was like, all right, for minus 250, that's right around where the money line was. I sprinkled that for minus 250, one unit on that, and it was right about, we talked about the money line in the video before, so I kept it on here as about the same. It wasn't like the Basinger Sursa Chimaev where I never talked about placing his money line, so I felt fine including it in this one because I had the Carlos Prates money line. That's what we talked about in the last video, and if we had that, or if you had that, that would have been even better odds than the minus 250 money line. So it was the same thing, just even better odds for when we talked about in the best bets video. So yeah, like we said, Carlos Prates minus 200 money line straight up before the fight started. That would have hit. I personally did not play it, but if you played it, that would have hit. That's what we talked about. The over 1.5 did not hit. I did not have anything placed on that, but that line did not hit, so that would not have hit, or that bet would not have cashed. But yeah, that does it for that one. Next up, we have Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. Now, we had Lerone Murphy. We talked about that. I was on that. I liked it. I didn't play it very heavily. The interesting thing too, is when we talked about that in the best bets video, I was talking about putting some action on it. That line was plus 145. By the time I actually placed the bets, I was at a bar with one of my buddies watching the fights. And by the time that line actually was, or the fight was about to start, that line had gotten all the way down to plus 114. So I just wanted to include that there because I did put a quarter unit on it, but I just couldn't get it at that plus 145. The line tightened up so much that I placed it at plus 114. That bet ended up cashing, like we talked about. And then next up for Khamzat versus DDP, all these lines were absolute cash. Now, I was soft. I kept it light. I didn't play hardly any of them. Khamzat Chimaev over 2.5 takedowns that we talked about. That line cashed. I just didn't play anything. Over 1.5 rounds, I did throw a quarter unit on that. I was being soft about it. I was being very conservative with it. That line did end up hitting. And then Khamzat Chimaev money line, that was straight up. I didn't play it straight up, but that line ended up hitting. Minus 260 would have cashed. And then down for the parlays, too, we had Deone Barbosa versus Silva over 1.5 rounds. Chase Super money line. That was the play of the week. Unfortunately, we got sold on that. Chase Super got put night. So things like that happened. You know, it was unfortunate that bet lost. The next parlay was Barbosa versus Silva over 1.5 rounds. Had the same leg as the one above it. And also the Lupi Godinez plus 7.5 alternate spread. That bet cashed. We got our return on that one. And then finally, we had the smash parlay. Baysanger versus Serkaev money line. Khamzat Chimaev had half a unit on that. That one cashed as well. So that does it for what I had in terms of my bets and how many units I had on everything. That's what I had. And to include, like I said too, without that live money line for Baysanger Serkaev, just because that was a line I hadn't talked about with you guys. So to be fully transparent, it still would have been about 0.7 units positive with 8% ROI, which was awesome. So now we're just going to break the fights fight by fight, give you my takes, give you my opinions, talk about the fights. Now, first up on the night, Alibi Idris versus Joseph Morales. Didn't have any action on this fight. Thank goodness we didn't, because, you know, we saw it was a complete upset. I forget what Idris ended up being a favorite as, like minus 500 or something. But obviously he got choked out in the, submission second round. So thank goodness we avoided that trap. You know, it's like it's a low-level MMA fight. You know, it was hard to see both these guys coming up short notice. I didn't really have a ton of tape study on either of them. I didn't have enough time to really deep dive into any of them, so I completely avoided this. I didn't want to fall into any traps, just picking up from what I've heard other people say. So if I can't do my own research, I'm not going to put anything on this, but thank goodness we didn't, because avoided this landmine. Next up was Crini Silva versus Deone Barbosa. This was a BS call. This was a robbery decision, man. Deone Barbosa won this fight hands down. She was like a minus 1,500 or something crazy going towards the end of the third round. Everyone thought she won. It was insane too. The crowd was booing completely. They were lighting the arena up with boos. You had DC and Joe Rogan talking about this is horrible decision. You know, like, why does this keep happening? All these robberies. Like, everyone and their mother was talking about how bad of a decision this was. And I know, I told the homie Gengar, if you're watching this video, I know we were commenting back and forth about this, and I know you had Silva in one of your parlays, and I know I told you to take her out. I know, looking back now, she should have won this fight, though. So it's like, I call it like a break even. You know, I feel bad I had you take her out, but at the same time, she deserved to lose this fight. She did not win this fight, so got lucky on that one. For if anyone had money on Crini Silva, you got very, very lucky on that. But for us, you know, we had the plus 7.5 alternate spread for Deone Barbosa. That's why I feel like I'm not biased in this. I had no influence in this. You know, all the bets cashed either way. The other parlays we had, it was Crini Silva versus Deone Barbosa to go over 1.5 rounds. Both of those hit. Plus 7.5 hit. So it was clear as day. Like, I had no bias in this at all. The plus 7.5 would have hit even if she lost. So I still think she got robbed, though. Deone Barbosa should have won this fight. She looked better. For short notice, too, absolute masterclass she put on. It looked great. Not like masterclass in general, but for being short notice, stepping up, doing the job, she looked great. This one picture on the left, I was worried for a little bit. She got an armbar late into the first round. I was like, oh my goodness. I knew we had 2 parlays with the over 1.5. I was sweating that one out. It got close, but thank goodness it made it to the second round and obviously to a decision. But yeah, that one had me worried a little bit with that armbar at the end. But anyway, next up, Brian Battle versus Nursultan Rozaboyev. This was a wash. So pissed this fight didn't happen. They kind of made up at the end. They said they might run this fight back later on. That's if the UFC lets Brian Battle's fat ass back in. Who knows about this one, but pissed these bets didn't end up going, because I think these would have cashed. Now, next up, we got Edson Barbosa versus Drakkar Klose. Not even mad about this one. Wrong pick, totally fine being wrong. Maybe a little bit biased because I like Edson Barbosa, and I think Drakkar Klose is a bit of a soft man. So, I mean, he's tougher than I am. He's in the cage fighting, obviously, but I just think he's never been very impressive to me. I'm not really a fan of his. So maybe a tad bit of bias, but I thought Edson Barbosa was going to have enough. I think the age is really starting to show on him. It's weird, or it's showing itself that it's really taking a toll on him. His body's wearing down. Clear decision. You know, Drakkar Klose deserved to win this fight. He won the decision. Made perfect sense to me. I think it was a great call. Of course, we don't get the robberies when they're supposed to go our way. You know, we don't get the robberies. We get the robbery going for Crini Silva, but I wish we could have got a robbery here. But yeah, no, clear as day. Drakkar Klose won. Congrats to him. He deserved the win. Now, next up, we had Chase Hooper versus Alexander Hernandez. This was a rough one. Not going to lie. This one hurt. You know, you can't be mad. Totally accurate call. Chase got put out. Alexander deserved the knockout win. No argument there. It just sucks. You know, I thought Chase Hooper was going to do better. His striking didn't look great. I thought he was going to look better than he did, and I thought Alexander Hernandez was going to look worse than he did. I thought Chase might be able to implement some of the grappling more, and he wasn't. You know, he kept it on the feet, got clipped, got knocked out. Almost made it to the second round, too. I'm like, oh, my goodness. If it was just a couple seconds later, he might have made it to the end of the round. All he needed was 2 more seconds. Didn't make it. I think it was a fair call. He was out. You know, he got rocked. So, can't be mad at anything here. Just happens. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you win some, you lose some. This one, unfortunately, got us. But this is where we started to turn around. This is when the greatness started to happen. Now, we had the good picks coming in. We had Lupi Godinez by decision, absolute cash. Didn't have any bets on this because we had Lupi plus 7.5 alternate spread in one of our parlays. So I did not have any singles on this fight. But for the pick, went great. The bets went great. All the bets hit for this. So great fight. Lupi looked really good. She looked better than I thought. Andrade looked better. Andrade looked worse than I thought. Lupi looked better than I thought she would. Pieced her up on the feet. Very impressive win for Lupi. You know, I think she's looking better and better. She's really starting to piece it all together. So she's becoming a real problem. Next up, we got Basinger Chimaev versus Eric Nolan. Now, I was pumped about this one because the minus 140, I hit the live money line spot on Basinger. That was a great hit. I was so glad because I was like, minus 1,200 is absolutely insane. You know, I mean, like, those odds were so cooked. But in the first round, too, I'm like, he lost the first round. That was the crazy part, too. That's why the lines dropped all the way down. And I was like, oh, my goodness. He's, like, showboating. He's, like, taunting. And he's getting worked on the feet, though. In that first picture, you can see he was getting outstruck on the feet. You know, like, he was getting worked. He got clipped a couple times. But I just knew it was probably a matter of time where the weight difference is going to be the main factor here. You got one guy stepping up short notice, up a weight class. He can't even get to 185 pounds, and he's having to fight someone who's cutting down to 186. It was just a matter of time before that strength and physicality was going to take over. That's why I liked the live money play on Basinger Chimaev. Ended up getting the round 2 submission. I predicted a round 2 knockout, but it was a round 2 submission. And the bet would have hit too. The fight to start round 2 at plus 110. Well, cashed on this too. So all around, it was great for the picks, the bets, all of the above. Next up, we had Mikhail Oleszejczuk versus GM3. This fight went exactly how I thought it was going to go. Oleszejczuk, round 1 knockout, pretty clear. GM3 had pretty much nothing to give him in the striking to make it competitive. One-way ass kicking. Got all the bets. I mean, we got the refund with the sub only, decision only. Got the money back, or got the cash coming in with the Mikhail Oleszejczuk money line. Made some money there. And yeah, awesome fight. Great with the picks. Beat down Mikhail Oleszejczuk. Looked great. You know, this went exactly how we thought it would. So next up, we had Tim Elliott versus Kai Asakura. You know, I got the pick wrong, but I can't say I'm super surprised. In my best bets video, I told everyone that minus 300 for Kai Asakura is way too wide, considering he hasn't been able to prove himself in the UFC yet. And Tim Elliott is a crafty-ass veteran who will do whatever it takes to win. That's exactly what he did. Tim Elliott put the brakes on him. He put that work in. He got the sub late. He was fighting for it too. Like, you know, Kai Asakura, he put up a good fight. It took him a while to get that sub. Like, he really had to crank it in and go for it. You could tell, it seems like Kai Asakura has improved his ground game a little bit. But, I mean, if you're getting choked out by a 38-year-old flyweight and Tim Elliott, I mean, not to say Tim Elliott's not good, because he obviously is still kicking ass, but it's just like 38-year-old flyweight, maybe Kai Asakura is not as good as we thought he is. You know what I mean? So, interesting to see what we'll do with Kai Asakura in the future, or what the UFC will do. I don't know who he's going to fight next, but it'll be very interesting. Same with Tim Elliott, you know. Shout out to Tim Elliott. It was good to see him win after all the BS he's been through in his life. It was put a smile on my face to see him win. Although it did suck to see Kai Asakura lose. You know, I like them both. Sucked to see either one of them lose, but I'm honestly more happy to see Tim Elliott win. So, and we avoided this one from many bets. So, kind of avoided the landmines here. Totally awesome. Now, next up, we got Jared Cannonier versus Michael Page. I love Michael Page. Put on a masterclass in this performance. Went exactly how we thought it was. He could have knocked out Jared Cannonier if he wanted to. He was really just taunting, showboating, dancing, doing all of his typical antics. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. That's why I figured it probably would go to a decision. I don't see MVP going to follow him down to the ground and do some crazy shit. He wanted to keep it on the feet. Totally awesome. All the bets cash. You had Michael Page money line, Jared Cannonier alternate spread. I didn't end up placing that, but if you did, that bet cash clear as day. 29-28 decision, cash that bet by a mile. So yeah, great, perfect pick. Got all the bets right on this one. Great fight for us. Next up, wait, did I skip one? Oh, yeah, wait. There we go. We got Jeff Neal versus Carlos Prates. Now, all the bets cashed for, or no, actually, over 1.5 rounds. Almost. It was almost there. I mean, he had 1 second left in round one. I think if he made it to the bench, it likely would have gone over the 1.5, but he was out cold. You know, that was a great stoppage. I mean, he got rocked. You can see in the picture, that elbow, I mean, he hit him right in the side of the head, messed him up. Jeff Neal got put out cold. Carlos Prates looked incredible. Had the money line bet hit on him, though. And so, yeah, it was a 50-50. Got the right pick, though. Great fight. Super entertaining. I was watching it at the bar with my buddy, and I was like, oh, my God. Everyone went crazy. It was awesome. Carlos Prates, real problem. And Jeff Neal is a dog, too. You know, I didn't think he was going to go out like that. So, I don't know if it's more of a Carlos Prates is looking even better than we thought, or Jeff Neal is maybe looking worse than we thought, because we know they're both killers. You know, they're both very high level fighters, so it'll be interesting to see where Carlos Prates goes from here. You know, I'm super excited. Fighting nerds know what they're doing, so yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for him. Now, next up, we got Lerone Murphy versus Aaron Pico. First off, you gotta say, Lerone Murphy, I apologize, I was unfamiliar with your game. Everyone's calling him boring, me included. That was a masterclass. That was insane. That was a banger of a fight. Shout out to Lerone Murphy. Got my respect. That was awesome. Insane knockout. Absolutely insane. Everyone picking Aaron Pico is kind of having to bite their tongue, because it's just like, I still don't get it. Why people were picking him. Like, he had nothing shown at a high level to what Lerone Murphy had been up against. You know what I mean? We've seen Aaron Pico get knocked out before. We saw him have shoulder injuries that caused him to lose a fight before. I'm like, there were holes or red flags, I'd say, about Aaron Pico. To pick him as a favorite, he was like a minus 200 favorite. Absolutely insane. Now, if the lines were flipped, if Lerone Murphy was the minus 200 favorite and Aaron Pico was the plus 150 or whatever underdog, I could see being like, okay, it's likely looks like this goes to a decision, dog or pass. Totally, that would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. But for all the people who picked Aaron Pico minus 200 favorite, what are you doing? What are you doing? So, awesome pick. You know, I thought it was going to go to a decision. Ended up being a knockout. I don't think a lot of people, if anyone predicted a round one knockout, yeah, shout out to you. But, you know, I thought it was going to go long, but Lerone Murphy did his thing. Awesome. We had the bet on Lerone Murphy money line straight up. Absolute cash. So, this was a great one. Next up, we got DDP versus Khamzat Chimaev in the main event. Now, this was a painful watch. Oh, my goodness. This was boring. This was a boring fight, all right? For the people who say, oh, if you want to watch boxing, just go watch boxing. You know, this is MMA. I like high-level grappling. There are fun aspects of grappling. Like, there's some grappling that is very back-and-forth competitive. It's very fun. Guys are going for submissions. You know, the wet blanket hugging grappling, like, this was just, like, pure control. This was just pure wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, there were no real submission threats. You know, like, it was just very boring to me. And it's like, there were times, like, I literally was like talking with my buddy and we'd look away for a couple minutes like, oh, well, Khamzat's still on his back. Nothing's happening here. Shout out to DDP for withstanding all of that. You know, he never gave up on himself. So you got to respect DDP. Super high class, like very classy at the end too. You know, very humble. Both of them were. So, I mean, respect to both of them. Khamzat did what he had to do to win. I'm not mad at him for that. I just thought it was super boring. I'm not excited about Khamzat being champion, especially considering he's probably only going to fight once a year if he can keep healthy. I just feel like Khamzat is fun when he's a 3-round fighter, because then he can crash out and make it fun. Like, Khamzat is a fun fighter in 3-rounders. You know, when he's going out there, the Rob Whittaker fight, super fun, super entertaining with the grappling. It's not just the grappling. It's just like that boring 5-round hugging style. It's going to be all of Khamzat's fights from here on. I mean, that's what they're going to be as long as he's champion. I mean, and who's going to beat him? No one else is going to beat him. Who, Fluffy? That's our only hope now. Izzy would get smoked. Imavov would get smoked. I don't think Brawlho would beat him. DDP's probably never going to beat him. It's like, who the hell is going to beat Khamzat? Middleweight division's absolutely cooked. But we'll see what happens, you know. Who knows? But in terms of the bets, we absolutely cashed on this. All the bets hit with this fight. We played it perfectly. All the bets, absolute money. I didn't have a single live bet on this fight. The second I saw DDP have absolutely zero chance of any moments of success, I was like, all right, this is over. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like Khamzat wasn't crashing out. He was exerting very little energy throughout. So it wasn't like he was going to burn out. He was just doing the bare minimum to be able to win the position and take control. Super boring. If you look at the fight too, I don't know if I said this already, but it was 5 rounds. Khamzat had 23 minutes of control, or about 23 minutes of control. DDP had about 1 minute of control. 24 out of 25 minutes of this fight was just on the ground. Not like super competitive, scrambling with grappling and going for submissions. It was just wrestling, just control. One of the worst title fights I've seen in a long time. It was one of the worst. It is about as bad as it could have been, which really kind of put a damper on the night. Like, this sucks. But for anyone who's saying, oh, just go watch boxing if that shit is so annoying. But anyway, the bets were awesome. So at least that was the one positive here. All the bets were awesome. We killed it. Over 2.5 takedowns cashed. Over 1.5 rounds cashed. Khamzat Chimaev money line cashed. Had him in a parlay with Chimaev that cashed. So that was awesome. So if you guys like the content, please like, comment, consider subscribing, do all that. It means a ton. Thank you so much for all the love. But just a little quick recap. Went 14 out of 17 on all the plays. This was the original breakdown with all the bets that we were talking about in that best bets video. This was the adjusted. This is what I played. This is what my exact slate was for the night. It just has that extra Basinger Chimaev live money line. I had half a unit at minus 140. Brought in 0.36 units, so didn't really make a whole lot of a difference. But this was like, if you had 1 unit on every single bet we talked about, it would have been 4.47 units, or 4.74 units, profit. So absolutely awesome night. Depending on how you guys played this, if any line stuck out to you, depending on what we talked about, what we discussed, we killed it tonight. Absolutely awesome night. So great fight card. Even with the main event being a little boring, it was still a banger. So made money, had fun fights. All around a great time. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the recent videos. It's been awesome. All the comments, all the likes, all the subscriptions. We've been blowing up. I really appreciate all the feedback, letting me know what you guys like, what you want to see, anything, any recommendations, anything like that. I really appreciate it. All the love. It's been so awesome. I try to get back to every single one of you guys that are commenting. So thank you guys once again so much for all the love. It means a ton. This next week, we got a card coming up in China, I think. So going to be super fun. We're going to get videos coming this week on that fight card. So stay tuned for those. Get ready. We're going to kill it. Another positive week coming in. Another profitable week coming up. So let's get after it. But in the meantime, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see you guys soon. So peace.